up in the dead of night with my heart calling you. Jesus, Jesus, I lie wide awake in bed with my heart beating out of my chest. Jesus, Jesus, my heart wants you. My heart wants you. I wake up in the dead of night with my heart calling yours. Oh Jesus, Jesus, oh I lie wide awake in bed with my heart beating out of my chest. Jesus, Jesus, my heart wants my heart wants even when I'm awake, I'm dreaming. Even in my silence, I'm singing. Oh Jesus, Jesus. Even in my trials, I'm praising. Even through my fires, I'm gazing. And Jesus, Jesus, my heart wants
Let's check this out. All right.
Shabbat shalom.
Hello and welcome everyone to Kingdom of Context. Hope you're enjoying this wonderful Sabbath. Shabbat shalom, sweetie.
Shabbat shalom, babe.
Thank you for joining me to do this. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Okay.
Whew, that song makes me tear up.
It's a good song. Put a one in the chat, guys, if our audio is good for both of us. And we want to thank everyone for being here. We're live streaming both on Facebook and YouTube today. So hopefully you guys are enjoying us wherever you're watching. Put a one in the comments and let us know you're here. In fact, you're welcome to, without putting your physical address, you're welcome to let us know from where you're watching around the world. We'd love to know where everyone's from. So
Sean and I are in Wyoming.
we live in Wyoming.
And it's just as boring and terrible and horrible and awful and ugly as everybody says it is. So don't move here.
That's right. In fact, some people say Wyoming doesn't even exist.
That's right. That's right. It's a big conspiracy. You should check it out. Looks like sound is good.
Sound is good. We are picking back up in our Sabbath Fellowship study of Zechariah. And we finished 10, 11, and 12 last week. We'll finish off 13 and 14 this week. And so we've been actually comparing the Masoretic and the Septuagint translations, which has been pretty interesting. So we got people here from South Carolina, from Nevada, Minnesota, Oklahoma.
Columbus. Juan, I'm originally from Ravenna, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
It's up next to Kent.
How do
Acronym.
they say Ohioans? Is that it?
Ohioans.
Ohioans, but there's no W when they spell it, right? It's just like
Yeah, there's no W.
it's just like adding an N.
An A-N.
An A-N.
Ohio N. Yeah.
Ohioans.
Like Colorado N. Ohio N.
We asked people here from Missouri, Michigan, and California, and New Zealand.
You know, in Wyoming, Sean and I thought it should be Wyomingans, but it's Wyomingites in
That's
Wyoming,
weird.
which I think is weird. I don't feel
That's
like we're
weird.
an ite here. We're not ites. We're N's. Guys, in the description, we do still have the fundraiser for the sister who is leaving an abusive situation with her children. We did help her gather quite a bit of money last week, so she's going to be able to get herself a vehicle. Really, the idea is to help her with something to get her started with a new life where she's going. I don't want to give specific details about where she's going, but I have been in contact with her. She does have a plan. It sounds like her husband is not contesting her leaving, so that is a good thing. It's when they're contesting it that it can be an extremely dangerous exit. So that is good. If you would like to continue helping, that fundraiser is still down there. So like I said, she's trying to get a vehicle. And then when she gets to where she's going, she's due to give birth in like 3 months. So she's got a whole postpartum season coming. She's got 2 children already that are like 3 and below. And yeah, so she's trying to get out to East Texas, start a new life. Once she's done with postpartum, she wants to get a job, you know. So yeah, we've got that fundraiser down there. If you're looking to give alms this week, that would be a great place to do it.
See it change both of them.
And thank you to everyone who's donated so far. We really appreciate you guys. The way you guys come through when people need you to come through is miraculous.
Yeah,
so.
it's a great show, the Family of Christ.
Yeah.
Help people out when needed. It's like, Paul in 1 Corinthians 16, taking alms for those in need back in Jerusalem from the people from the Mediterranean. So all over, the known world at that time, they were still the believers are still willing to give and help out people that were in need. So it's a huge blessing that you guys are a part of this, helping us do this stuff.
Yeah, amen.
Okay.
All right.
People from all over the world, South Dakota, Utah, Ozarks, and Arkansas, which is a really large area. Belgium even. Hey, welcome. And
do we say bonjour?
No, Belgium.
Don't they speak French in Belgium?
No, they speak Dutch, don't they? Isn't
You're gonna have to let us know. I thought they spoke French in Belgium. My French teacher in 10th grade, 11th grade, he was from Belgium. So let us know.
I'm sure they could probably speak a variety of languages. Who knows? I'm sure it's
true.
Probably speak their share of Islam today, their share of Arabic today. Unfortunately,
yikes.
From the forced immigration. In fact, did Belgium allow the forced immigration? Okay, we don't need to get into all that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother video, babe.
Yeah, it's a whole nother video. Even from South Africa, welcome.
Awesome.
Welcome, everyone. Kansas, welcome. Nevada, South Dakota.
Texas,
of course. Everyone from all over the earth.
Welcome, guys.
Awesome, guys.
Shabbat
awesome.
shalom.
So we have been studying this. Nope. Let's do this. We've been studying this lately. That's not right either.
There we go.
And it's been interesting. Zechariah is quite the book. Into the days of exile, Babylon is the general context, but of course he's prophesying about different time periods. And I think last week we stopped in chapter 12. We ended chapter 12. We'll start with chapter 13. Pick it up. What we're doing first is on the Berean Standard Bible is the Masoretic translation on the left-hand side. The Brenton Septuagint Bible is on the right-hand side. And so we're comparing the two as we read to see if there's any major things left out, added in, reworded in a way that could be confusing. Like if you study the book of Job, you'll see that the Septuagint and Masoretic translations are very different at times, and sometimes leaves out what I would feel like is important theological information.
Yes.
The Septuagint has more of it. So I would actually recommend the Septuagint reading of the book of Job as opposed to the Masorite. So yeah, it's all right. Someone's telling us that Belgium has 3 official languages.
We're
Dutch,
both right.
French and German. Okay.
So we're both right.
All right.
So bonjour. That's about all I remember from French 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, I remember Je m'appelle Sean.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Je suis très content. As I'm just saying, I'm really happy as I look at my wife.
I was
And
je m'appelle Isabelle de because some other girl picked Isabel before they got to me in the classroom. So I was Isabelle de.
duh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Duh.
All right then.
Very appropriate for my teenage years.
Okay. Let's go to Zechariah 13. On the left-hand side, we're reading it from the Berean Standard Bible. It says, on that day, a fountain will be opened to the house of David and the people of Jerusalem to cleanse them from sin and impurity. So some people could say this is the day of the resurrection because of the rest of, but we'll just keep reading. And on that day that declares the Lord of hosts, I will erase the names of the idols from the land, and they will no longer be remembered. I will also remove the prophets and spirits of impurity from the land. And if anyone still prophesies, his father and mother who bore him will say to him, you shall not remain alive because you've spoken falsely in the name of the Lord. And when he prophesies, his father and mother who bore him will pierce him through. And on that day, every prophet who prophesies will be ashamed of his vision, and he will not put on a hairy cloak in order to deceive. He will say, I'm not a prophet. I worked for the land, for I was purchased as a servant in my youth. And if someone asks him, what are these wounds on your chest? He will answer, these are the wounds I received in the house of my friends. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man who is my companion, declares the Lord of hosts. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn my hand against the little ones. And in all the land, declares the Lord, 2/3 will be cut off and perish, but 1/3 will be left in it. This third I will bring through the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name. I will answer them. I will say they are my people, and they will say the Lord is our God. Okay. Thoughts, sweetie? You have any questions about what we just read?
Yeah, I thought the wounds were in his hands in that verse, but that says it's in his chest.
Remember, we read from Zechariah. I don't think the wounds are in his hands in Zechariah. I think you may be thinking of Psalm 22.
I'm thinking of a Chuck Missler sermon I heard many moons ago when I very first became a Christian. So again, this is an example of me hearing scripture like half quoted in a sermon and thinking I know a verse, but we're reading here and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought Brother Chuck was driving home that I received these in the house of my friends, and what a sad thing that is.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think I also heard that where Chuck Missler uses this prophecy to say it was speaking of Christ.
Yeah. So is it not?
Well, it's from this translation, it seems to say this is a prophet who is ashamed to be prophesying because of the judgment of the Lord coming upon them. And now he's trying to cloak himself. He's trying to hide himself from the people so they don't realize he's a prophet because his prophecies didn't come true. And he's trying to live.
That's why I'm like, kind of don't have much to say. Cause I'm like still trying to recover from the confusion of reading the whole chapter where I'm like, wait a minute, what? That does not sound at all like Jesus.
Yeah. And I don't want to slander Chuck Missler's teaching. I don't exactly remember the context of everything he was saying, but I do remember him drawing that point about this particular.
I'm sure he's not the only one.
And I think I remember him drawing his attention to this phrase as if it's talking of Christ, but it doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be talking to Christ at all. But instead of false prophets who are trying to hide to escape judgment from the people, because the people now realize they're false prophets.
Yeah.
And so and I don't know what the wounds on the chest signify. I don't know. Surely the prophets didn't brand themselves. So I don't know exactly what this is meaning as far as the wounds on your chest. But clearly whatever wounds he's received, he's trying to play it off as if he's just been a hired servant, a part of some other people, and he's not a prophet, but that's a lie. I do think that verse 7 though, which is something that is like in a very loose way quoted in the New Testament concerning Christ, when Christ is then taken in the Garden of Gethsemane and then the other disciples scatter. So this is that moment that's quoted of Christ in the Gospels.
Yeah,
verse 7.
The Septuagint is reading a little differently than that. So
yeah,
I'm interested. Let's read the Septuagint side because I'm kind of like seeing some differences just sitting here as we talk.
Yeah. And this particular part here, 8 and 9, I can't confidently say from the context whether this is referring to anything points beyond Zechariah's life, leading up to Christ, and the additional dispersion of the people in AD 70 and that 600-700 year time period. I cannot definitively say that this is speaking about any people in that time period.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Otherwise, I would think it's having it. You know, we have the concept in the Day of the Lord judgment where there is also this mentioning of destruction happening in thirds in Revelation 8 and other places. And then, of course, we see the sheep and goats judgment, Matthew 25, where Christ chooses sheep, to which they then call him the Lord.
Right.
And he then calls them his people because he chooses them as sheep. So I honestly, it's hard to say because there's not a lot of context, but let's read the Septuagint translation as a comparison. It says, in that day, every place shall be open to the house of David and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for removal and for separation. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord of hosts, says the Lord of hosts, that I will utterly destroy the names of the idols from the land, and there shall be no longer any remembrance of them. And I will cut off the false prophets and every evil spirit from the land. And it shall come to pass, if a man will yet prophesy, that his father and his mother, which gave birth to him, shall say to him, you shall not live, for you have spoken lies in the name of the Lord. And his father and his mother, who gave him birth, shall bind him as he is prophesying. And it shall come to pass in that day that the prophets shall be, okay, for one, you didn't stop prophesying even after they're coming for you. Even as he's prophesying, they're going to go ahead and bind him. And it shall come to pass in the day that the prophet shall be ashamed of every one of his vision when he prophesies, and they shall clothe themselves with a garment of hair because they have lied. And one shall say, I am not a prophet, for I am a tiller of the ground, for a man brought me up thus from my youth. And I will say to him, what are these wounds between your hands? And he will say, those with which I was wounded in my beloved house. Awake, O sword, against my shepherds and against the man who is my citizen, says the Lord Almighty. Smite the shepherds and draw out the sheep, and I will bring mine hand upon the little ones. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, says the Lord, 2 parts thereof shall be cut off and perish, but the third shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and I will try them as silver is tried, and I will prove them as gold is proved. They shall call upon my name, and I will hear them, and say, this is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God.
Yeah, that second half reads quite a bit differently in the Septuagint. I mean, that verse that we were, verse in question we were talking about first, it goes from my shepherd with capital M, capital S,
right,
to my shepherds and the man who is my citizen.
Right.
So and it reads more clearly, honestly, to me, in terms of painting an image for me that I can picture easily as we go. It's doing it way more for me on Septuagint side than the Masoretic side with that last.
I got to say, both translations are confusing to me as far as the man who is my companion, which seems to be alluding to the shepherd, whereas this one calls him a citizen, which is kind of interesting. It strikes me of Greek thoughts as far as calling someone a citizen versus a companion who's also referenced as a shepherd, because a citizen doesn't necessarily always give you, it doesn't seem like a synonym for a shepherd. You see what I'm saying?
But my issue is that shepherds is plural both times in this verse. So I'm like, well, then clearly.
I hear that, baby. I'm not ignoring you. I'm sorry. I acknowledge what you said, and I hear what you're saying. I don't have an answer for the plurality of it. I apologize. So I just, I don't get it either. But as far as why one would be plural and one would not, maybe the Hebrew word from which they translate it could be also plural. I'd have to look that up in a different resource. Maybe that's the issue, and then the Greeks decided to translate it as a plural. I'm not sure. Now, the shepherds, if we're talking, like, if this is a prophecy that we see the New Testament apply to Christ when he gets taken and sent to the cross, then I would say the shepherds could be easily as apostles as well, because he's given them authority to go teach people.
Okay.
And so then they face persecution for the next 40, 50 years until they're all killed except for John, who's on the island of Patmos in exile. So, but there was clearly persecution going to be happening because people that are considered good shepherds in this context are being smite, which means there's persecution on sound doctrine being taught. Okay. So we do see that take place after Christ ascends to heaven and the gospel is spread through the Mediterranean. But yeah.
Let's see if anyone has
It's
any
interesting.
thoughts in the chat about it.
I don't see. Yeah, Miss Marshall, we don't know why YouTube changed everybody's name. It's weird.
Okay. So Yoshi Yahoo, that would be why Chuck Missler would have been saying the wounds in my hands, because he definitely was reading from a KJV, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That's see, now that I wonder if that's like a translator bias.
I don't know. It could be.
Because you've got the Septuagint that says between my hands, and then you've got the Masoretic that's saying it's a wound in the chest.
Yoshiyahu, if you're still listening, why did you decide to use Yoshi? I looked up what that means in Japanese, but I was interested to know if that's why you decided to use it for your tag name. I like it, and I'm curious how you came to that, because it's actually the main character in a book that I haven't finished writing.
He was just talking about it a couple days ago, actually.
The main character is a 12-year-old Japanese boy named Yoshi. All right, so yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely a. I mean, the concept, regardless of the plurals, the concept is clearly like. The concept is repeated throughout time whenever there's persecution upon the righteous by the wicked, whether it's in the days of Isaiah, Ezekiel, the Maccabees, or Christ. Same concept appears. So I could see why this would be quoted when Christ is taken in and his disciples scatter in the middle of the night. I could see why this would be quoted.
Was this quote?
I'm pretty sure this was maybe in John. I have to go look it up real quick. Just give me a moment.
Yoshi says it's Hebrew for Josiah.
Josiah, interesting. Yeah, because in Japanese it means righteousness. All right, so it's Matthew 26 and Mark 14 is where Jesus said, "You will fall away, for it's written, I will strike the shepherd, the sheep will be scattered." So,
okay, so
this is what this is what a lot of people refer to as kind of like a first century midrash style of writing, where it's in quoting and citing, to where it's like they loosely quote a concept from scripture, pertaining to something they're talking about, because it contextually fits, but it maybe not be a one-to-one. He maybe not be declaring it's a one-to-one prophecy. Now,
like he's not opening up, but he says
I personally say that in this moment he is declaring a one-to-one prophecy.
Yeah.
But we see other instances of this where the New Testament writers will refer back to a passage from the prophets because it's speaking of the same context they're dealing with.
Okay.
And it's considered like a midrash thought.
Okay.
Right. So, but yes, this is interesting.
Jesus said to them, "You will fall away." Do we see who he's talking to?
Jesus said to them, his disciples. Peter declared.
He said to the disciples, "You will fall away."
Yeah, because he's telling them about he's going to be betrayed.
Okay, so he's not saying they'll fall away from
they
the
prepare
faith.
This is at the Last Supper. Like this is the Passover, the Last Supper.
Right.
So, yeah. So I was wrong.
Okay.
It wasn't at the Mount of Olives. Or I guess, they went down to Mount. It was at the Mount of Olives. He said this to them.
But so that would mean that you also could be right about the plural of shepherds in the Septuagint possibly being referring to. I mean, they all, except for John, were martyred unto death, even though John was also persecuted in being exiled. But
whomever John's disciples were facing persecution as well. So this is, again, it's a principle we see throughout Scripture, even in the writings of First Enoch, as far as the teachers of righteousness being persecuted. It's literally why Enoch was taken and hidden away in the garden, right? So this is where it's a principle that's timeless, but it seems as if Yeshua is literally quoting from this passage in reference to his disciples falling away, or at least being scared and scattered because the shepherd's being persecuted.
Yeah, it's a weird way to word it, because falling away automatically makes me think faith,
right,
and salvation, but it's physically.
That's this translation. This is where I would say
it could be.
You may want to look. All of you will desert me. Well, we have to look at the definition for you
That-
will be offended because of me.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, because they do all kind of scatter when he's
Yeah.
actually taken to the cross.
You will be made to stumble because of me. And Peter stumbled. He denied him 3
That's
times.
true.
You know, so yeah, probably in the Greek, if you looked up the Greek word, it has the same
Hmm.
connotation.
Okay.
So, all right, let's go to chapter 14. So here on the left-hand side, the Berean Standard Bible reads from the Masoretic translation, "Behold, the day of the Lord is coming when your plunder will be divided in your presence. For I will gather all the nations for battle against Jerusalem, and the city will be captured, the houses looted, the women ravished. Half of the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be removed from the city. Then the Lord will go out to fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley, with half the mountain moving to the north and half to the south. You will flee by my mountain valley, for it will extend to Azal. You will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, the king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. On that day there will be no light, nor cold, nor frost. It will be a day known holy only to the Lord, without day or night. But when evening comes, there will be light. And on that day, the living water will flow out from the Jerusalem, half of it toward the eastern sea, and the other half toward the western sea, in summer and winter alike. On that day, the Lord will become king over all the earth, the Lord alone, and his name alone." I'll hold my commentary. Sorry.
Yeah.
All the land from Geba to Ramon, south of Jerusalem, will be turned into a plain, but Jerusalem will be raised up and will remain in her place, from the Benjamin gate to the site of the first gate to the corner gate, from the tower of Hananel to the royal winepress. People will live there, and never again will there be in utter destruction. So Jerusalem will dwell securely. And this will be the plague with which the Lord strikes all the peoples who have warred against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they stand on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. On that day, a great panic from the Lord will come upon them, so that each will seize the hand of another, and the hand of one will rise against the other. Judah will also fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations will be collected, gold, silver, and apparel in great abundance. And a similar plague will strike the horses and mules, camels and donkeys, and all the animals in those camps. Then all the survivors from the nations that came against Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And should any of the families of the earth not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, then the rain will not fall on them. And if the people of Egypt will not go up and enter in, then the rain will not fall on them. But this will be the plague with which the Lord strikes the nations who do not go up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. This will be the punishment of Egypt and all the nations that do not go up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. On that day, holy to the Lord will be inscribed on the bells of the horses, and the cooking pots in the house of the Lord will be like the sprinkling bowls before the altar. Indeed, every pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to the Lord of hosts, and all who sacrifice will come and take some pots and cook in them. On that day, there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. All right, there's a lot here.
There is a lot
Huge
here.
chapter,
It's
guys.
kind of funny because each chapter leading up to this, I didn't realize how short they were actually until getting this one. Then it's like, oh yeah, this has a bit more punch to it.
Yeah. So, this is interesting. It starts out talking about this day of the Lord where the plunder is divided in your presence. That's interesting to me. It goes on to explain it's silver, gold, and apparel in great abundance, but it's interesting to me because the book of Enoch describes it in greater detail,
Yeah, I
chapter
was
55.
just going to ask you, doesn't the book of Enoch describe this?
Yeah, where it's all the metals of the earth, silver, gold, tin, aluminum, and I think copper, are all gathered to the Lord in these massive piles. And it says he makes them as nothing as they melt before the Lord. I don't think he just melts them personally. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe he does with fire in order to cleanse them, especially if they've been from idols. Because remember, that's what we see in the book of Joshua for cleansing the silver and the gold taken from Ai, is they burned them with fire and washed them with water. Okay, so there is a way that the Father can take something that's desecrated and make it holy again.
Yeah.
As far as being material substance of the earth. By the way, this is the coming of the Lord, and I believe all these qualifiers tell us this is an actual coming of the Lord, second coming, something we've never experienced in history before. Yeah. And here is the kingdom of heaven coming down out of heaven, the Lord himself, his son and angels coming, whom modern theologians will say, well, they're all spiritual. Yet
Yeah.
they're taking physical substance from the people and dividing them up, purifying them to be for use. And so just another wonderful example of how the spiritual and the physical interact, because that's the way God made the creation. So this Greek idea that anything that's spiritual is incorporeal and non-material and doesn't is at a higher plane of existence than our physical realm, that's Gnosticism, guys. That is not what Scripture describes. We do not live in a system of where material matter is inherently evil and lesser than spiritual matter. No, God created them so they can interact together. The house of the God, John 4:24, God who's spirit, his house was made of physical things.
Yeah, you would think that if the goal is to escape the flesh and live in your spirit body, then all the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim would be doing fine right now and not trying to find bodies to inhabit constantly,
Right.
because they're in some sort of torment and agony by being disembodied spirits. Like, you would think that, they'd already have what everybody wants. They've escaped that flesh.
Well, that's the lie they're telling people.
Isn't it? I mean, talk about projection, man.
Yeah, for real. That's the lie they're telling people. So yeah, it's interesting here that we have right off the bat, he's announcing before he talks about the battle, he's like, oh, by the way, we're going to divide a whole bunch of plunder in the presence of the Lord, which means he's the victor. Right off the bat, he's declaring, oh, by the way, I'm about to win. So let me explain how I'm about to win.
Yeah.
Verse 2, I'll gather all the nations, battle against Jerusalem, the city will be captured, houses looted, women ravished. This is the moment where the 10 kings cross the Euphrates, in my opinion, and they're under the control of the beast, who's under the control of Satan. This is at the end of the 42 months. They are going to invade Jerusalem to try to take it over. Remember, because the two witnesses have been there prophesying unfazed by people's attempt to assassinate them.
For what, 3.5 years they've been there?
For 3.5 years, that's right. So, yes, and then finally, all these 10 kings for this 1 hour give their authority to the beast, who then congeals them all and convenes them all to attack Jerusalem. But there's going to be so many of them, they also file into the Valley of Armageddon, because that's one of the ways that they can come down into Jerusalem.
Okay.
From the paths from the east,
okay,
from the land formation, which is why then when Christ returns, he's not only battling them in Jerusalem, Edom, but he's also battling them all over the place. But also the major part of the battle is in the Valley of Armageddon, which is literally in view from Nazareth.
Wow.
Which I think is always fascinating to me, because he grew up overlooking this valley from his hometown in Nazareth. So it's very interesting.
Valley of Armageddon, is that also the one that's called
Megiddo?
Megiddo? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So it's interesting to me that it is directly telling us that the Lord goes out to fight against these people in this day. Guys, no matter how many times this is shouted from the back of the bleachers by our fellow brethren, our highly confused fellow brethren in preterism, this did not happen in AD 70. Yahweh did not come down to fight and protect Jerusalem and restore Jerusalem and resurrect people to eternal life and create waters that go out in the winter and the summer and all these other descriptions we're about to read. None of this happened in AD 70
or 1948.
None of this. The Romans came in AD 70 and slaughtered 500,000 people and dispersed the rest into the nations.
Yep.
And the guy who did it wasn't killed that day, as prophesied by the beast in Revelation 19, who's destroyed by the sun that is coming. Instead, the guy who invaded Jerusalem AD 70 lived another 11 years. The Roman emperor didn't even die. None of the attacking forces on Jerusalem AD 70 were killed in divine justice by the angels of God and the Son of Man returning out of heaven. None of them were killed that day. This is not talking about AD 70. This is something that has never happened in history. And there's a ton of details that let you know this is a promise we can still trust in to come for the future. So, because when the Lord shows up to fight at this battle on this day, he never leaves. That's the bigger one I think people need to realize. He never leaves. For all of you Satan's little season confused people out there, when Yahweh shows up and his son shows up in the house of God, the tabernacle and New Jerusalem of God, descends to the earth and sits between the Euphrates and the Nile, never goes away, ever. The reign of the Son lasts forever.
Is this a verse that's used by Trinitarians to say Jesus is equal to the Father? Because, I mean, it is Jesus who comes down and does that battle, right? Like,
it depends on which one you're talking to. But yes, to your question, in a general sense, every time you see where they say Yahweh and it's loosely translated as the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
they'll say that's Jesus, and you say, but this is prophesied of the Father, and they'll say Jesus is Yahweh, and you'll say, wait, are you a modalist? And they'll say, well, no.
No, my question is, it is Jesus that comes down to do this
course,
battle,
of
right?
course,
It's not
yeah.
literally the Father. He doesn't come down until after it's all cleaned and prepared for the city to come down, right? So,
Well, from putting all the details together, the Son and the angels come down and fight the battle as the New Jerusalem is still descending down
Right.
through the sky.
right, okay.
So, okay.
So, but ultimately, this verse, it's agency being discussed here, right? When it's saying
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Lord is going to come down, Yahweh is
Yeah.
going to, it's Jesus coming to it under the authority and power of the Lord. Because Jesus, I guess he can
Remember,
get bloody.
yeah. Well, yes, all judgment was given to the Son. Okay. But the Father's not fighting the battle literally. It's
Right.
it's his servants who fight the battle.
Right.
And this is why Jude 1:14 and 15 repeats Enoch's prophecy about the Lord is coming with myriads of his holy ones. And this is where I think it's in Matthew 24, or is it 16, where Jesus talks about the Son of Man returning through the sky, and they will see. I'm answering your question. Are you still with me? What
Yeah.
happened?
Nothing.
Okay.
I just saw a comment I was looking at.
Yeah, so I'm actually still answering your question to show you this is the Son of Man.
I know you're still answering me.
That is the
babe.
one that's descending with his angels and loud trumpet calls. So he's been given authority in heaven and earth. So that
Right.
means the angels are under his authority,
Right.
but it's clearly the Father created the angels. Like it's
Yeah.
the angels of the
Yeah.
Father. So this is why I talk about the Father's house coming down, but the Son precedes it to prepare to remove the wicked and prepare the land for the
Right.
house to sit down.
Right. Okay.
So there is a time period in between Christ's actual return through the sky to do battle versus the setting down of the Father's house. There's a time period there. It's not 2,000 years.
Right.
It's like literally, my estimation, it's about a week, because you have to have time to actually kill everybody, clean the land. There's going to be, it's
burn
going to
everything.
burn it with fire. Water and fire is going to cleanse the land as per Torah, as per Joel and a bunch of other verses. So there's a lot there.
Go ahead and read the.
I would. Yeah, I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through the Masoretic a little bit
for
further.
Me, like breaking down the chapter, it's helpful to have
This is
the
a part
other.
This is a part of the teaching.
Translation too.
We'll get to it, but I'm just want to break down a few things here as a part of the teaching, just to help people understand. This is a very important passage for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I thought we were still going to break it down. I just feel like it's helpful to break it down also with the understanding what the Septuagint says, just in case it is different. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay, sweetie. We'll just keep going real quick, okay? I've always thought this was interesting. There's no light, no cold, no frost. It talks about the day of the Lord being a day of darkness and gloom.
Yeah.
The sun doesn't shine. The moon's not shining. Stars fall from the heaven. This very unique day that we've never experienced in this earth before.
Do you think this stars falling from heaven thing, like, are we going to like somehow help put them back into the refashioned firmament? What do you think?
I think the Lord does it per Jubilees 19 when he talks about renewing the firmament after he takes over the earth.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the only time I've ever seen the prophecy that talks about the stars in heaven being renewed in the firmament after a specific judgment.
Okay.
So, and of course, this is a huge qualifier that I think people should take note of, is that on that day, living water flows out from Jerusalem, half toward the eastern, half toward the western sea, summer and winter alike. So this is a unique passage because the concept of the day of the Lord on that day, so on that specific day that he returns, it's a unique day with no light, no cold, no frost. But we know that this isn't, the sun and moon are prophesied to be established forever on the earth.
Right.
Okay. But the use of the term on that day has a semantic range of use. It doesn't always mean a single 24-hour day. Sometimes it can mean even 1,000 years. A day is to the Lord like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what this suddenly transitions into explaining on that day, meaning this day where he's already here, he's established it, and it's the quote day of the Lord into the millennial reign now, right?
Yeah, the Lord's day.
The Lord's day. And this also lets you know it's not talking about a single day because it's prophesying a change of seasons, right? Where this water is flowing out from Jerusalem. This is the river of life, Ezekiel 47 and Revelation 22.
It drives me absolutely bonkers when people want to argue that Ezekiel is not, that those chapters are not referring to the millennium and the kingdom, because I'm like, there's a common denominator that is very unique to the kingdom in these descriptions, and that being the river of life. Plus Ezekiel even literally says the trees of life too. So it's like Ezekiel's got both of them in there. But yeah, I guess I have read Zechariah. Actually, this is the one chapter of Zechariah I'm the most familiar with. And this particular verse, I guess I've just never noticed it.
Yep. It's there.
Yeah, here it is too. Here's a third witness to this living water. Yeah,
there you go.
It's gonna be awesome. I'm so excited for it.
We've got more descriptions that people will live there and never again will there be utter destruction. Jerusalem will dwell securely. Is Jerusalem dwelling securely today?
Oh, absolutely the heck not.
Okay. Since AD 70, has there been further destruction of Jerusalem?
Yes, a constant, ongoing. It's like just a cycle of it. I mean, get into the Crusades and the Muslims. Yeah.
Yep. This will be the plague which the Lord strikes all the people who warred against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they stand. Their eyes rot in their sockets. Their tongues will rot in their mouths. Did this happen to the Roman army in AD 70? No, it did not. This is another beautiful prophecy about the invading armies that we see, complementary prophecy from the apocalypse, or excuse me, from Second Esdras in chapter 13 about the people that are trying to fight the Son of Man. They actually start turning on themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're so scared of what they're witnessing descending through the heaven. Judah will also fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations will be collected, gold, silver, and apparel in great abundance. We also see this paralleled in 1 Enoch chapter 54 and 55, 52 and 55, as well as Revelation 21, verses, I think, 26 and 27. All the nations will bring their glory, that represents their wealth, into the New Jerusalem. Another example of how the house of God interacts with the nations once it sets down. Right. And then a similar plague will strike the horses, mules, camels, and donkeys, all the animals in those camps. Because 2 Esdras 13 describes when Christ is returning through the sky, he says he speaks a tempest of fire from his mouth. And fire precedes him and destroys all the armies that have come in against him.
Wow.
So just imagine a nuclear bomb type fire, just your tongue rots while you stand. That's intense heat that happens super fast.
Yeah.
Your body hasn't even been able to fall yet. Your consciousness hasn't even left your mind yet to where your body falls yet, and your tongue and eyes are rotting in your skull.
That's
super quick.
I don't know if anybody out there saw an anime back in school like I did called Barefoot Gen. Do you remember Barefoot Gen?
No.
It was about either Hiroshima or Nagasaki, one of the Japanese cities that the bomb was dropped on. But that was the scenes of the people being basically vaporized from the heat of the nuclear blast. Those scenes stuck with me. I was like, why are they showing us this at school? But I mean, I guess it was kind of to like drive home the point. And it was effective because it's been how many years, and I still remember that movie, even the title, because of those depictions. And that is what I always picture when I read this. I'm like, man, that sounds like what they were showing in Barefoot Gen, because it was like just vaporizing people's just flesh right off of them. It was a very anime depiction.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
for most Americans, you probably remember Terminator 2 Judgment Day, seeing a nuclear bomb blast Linda Hamilton holding onto the little fence. But essentially, there is real quick before I finish with this answer.
I wasn't going to say
Popcorn 345. We're saying the words AD 70, the time period 70 years after the turning of
after
AD.
death.
AD 70. That's what we've been saying. It's a historical moment where the final dispersion of Israel happened, and the temple was destroyed, and the people were scattered amongst the Roman Empire.
Some people would say it 70 AD.
So the idea of the tempest that comes out of Christ's mouth and destroys people while they stand, burning them to a crisp while they stand, is as a part of this judgment. That's interesting because of frequencies. Like you can even take frequencies and not only create cymatics with it, but you can do destruction with it as well.
Yeah.
And so this is where, imagine the frequency of the font, like the sun knows the frequency of what would destroy evil and not good.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
So in the same way, 15 years ago, there was a radio engineer who decided he wanted to cure his wife of cancer. So he started messing with frequencies, with I think whatever radio frequencies are. I'm not an engineer in the radio industry. So he started messing with different frequencies to try to target cancer cells. And he was like partially successful. But in the midst of it, he realized he could actually just ignite seawater and create fuel. That's a whole different story arose from that. But the point was, it is possible to with frequencies to target specific things that are destructive inside the human body. Now imagine people that are taking the mark of the beast, and however that changed them.
Yeah.
Because those are the people in this army that he's fighting.
Yeah.
According to
and,
Revelation.
Isn't there a description of them that says they're going to seek for death but can't find it? Like there's some sort of agony going on where they want to die, but they can't.
In Revelation 9, those who get stung are in torment for 5 months. It says men will in those days will seek death and not find it.
Okay.
So that's Revelation 9. But what I'm saying is everyone who takes the mark is also going to suffer the wrath of the Lamb per Revelation. And so this is why they're the ones drawn to this battle. And so there are people that do not take the mark.
Yeah.
So let's let you know that the Antichrist isn't completely successful
Right.
in his attempt to take over the nations. And so here, this particular group of people that have come together against the coming of the Lord on this day to fight him, they're going to be burned to a crisp with the words of God. So in the same way, in John chapter 19, when the Roman soldiers tried to come to John, or tried to come to Jesus and take him, and they said, "Are you Jesus Nazareth?" He said, "I am." And then the whole squadron of Romans fell down from him saying, "I am he."
Okay.
He spoke, and they all lost their ability to stand up.
Yeah.
Right. So there is something amazing within the power of being able to have the Holy Spirit speak through you, knowing exactly, like, there is no weapon that could stand against this because everything works on frequency.
Yeah.
There's no weapon in the world. Like, God created the world by speaking into matter with water and substance and created everything. Right. So imagine him being like, "Oh, I can just as easily trust my son with the authority to speak in that same way,
Right.
or with a similar frequency that can disassemble everything really quick." Right. What does it say? Our Lord is a consuming fire in Exodus. So like, it's an amazing concept to think of, because it actually gets pretty scientific, if you will.
Yeah.
To think about the construction of creation and how this is something that's used, because think of all the weapons that the world tries to create. And I don't think that they're creating them for each other. I think they're creating them for this day.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that all of our, weapons industry, that they keep trying to increase their ability to make a more bigger, badder weapon.
Yeah.
I don't think it's for us.
That's a good point, because they've already got weapons they can use to destroy mass amounts of people in very short amounts of time.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
With very small amounts of effort on their behalf. And yet they still are searching and seeking. And who knows what they've created with all of Tesla's writings that are still classified, and we don't even know what he's got in there. So
yeah, so this, I don't know if I've talked about it much, but that's big scale. That's my thought process on why the war industry continues to look for more deadly weapons than what we already do have. And I think it's because they're preparing for this day. They're deathly afraid. They don't know the day or the hour.
Yeah.
So they're preparing as much. How can they destroy angels? How could you fight an angel that can kill 185,000 people in one night?
Yeah. And, the angel that's leading them, he has to know deep down that they can't.
Right.
Like, he has to know.
Which is why I did that 42 series on the obsession with time travel.
Yeah.
It's the impossible spell. He knows he can't defeat something that's greater than him. But if he can manipulate the frequency of creation and turn back time, then he might be able to avoid judgment, or
buy some more time,
or just get out of this creation altogether. But he can't. He's told he's going to be here until this moment we're reading about.
World's longest coat, man.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So then it talks about the survivors of the nations. This also did not happen in AD 70, guys. That you did not have the survivors of all the nations then suddenly go to the destroyed Jerusalem in AD 70 and start trying to worship Yahweh for the Feast of Tabernacles. This is a future prophecy. And so this is beautiful. All the families of the earth will go up. And of course, this also lets you know that sacrifice is not a bad thing. They're still considered holy to the Lord. all the nations will participate in sacrificing to Yahweh.
I love it. The deeper we dive into this aspect of God's creation of sacrifices and food, the more I just have this deep love and appreciation for the culture of food in this world, and just how much it brings cultures together, and it brings families together and friends. And it's just saw a little reel today that actually sparked an idea in my mind for could be a fun post, but I never thought about the fact that written recipes were really not a widespread thing up until more people had paper on a regular basis. So if you have a recipe from an ancient time in the world, that's kind of like a huge deal, because chefs and cooks back then, if you didn't have money for paper, paper wasn't even really a thing for a very long time. So that was just something I had never thought about, that wow, like if you were able to have a written recipe, that was like a sign of wealth, that you had recipe. If you had a cookbook, that was like not even a thing for most of human history. So it's just such a different kind of appreciation for God's creation and this world that he gave us, that I think gets completely overlooked by people, because we're so disconnected from the idea of being in his image. We're so far from that being a literal real thing, that he also likes the things that we like in terms of food, and how food smells when it's cooking, and how it tastes when you're eating it, and the fellowship that comes with the food. That is just an aspect of God himself that I feel like so many people miss out on, because they're disconnected from the idea that he literally made us in his image. So he looks like us. He has nostrils that smell food. He says he enjoys the smell, the grain offerings in his sacrifices. Like, everybody loves the smell of fresh baked bread. Why is that? As opposed to other smells in this world, what is it about smells of certain foods that are just so comforting for us? So I don't know. I have not noticed until this year all the areas where he's like showing us kitchens. Like, I just posted a passage from Ezekiel, where Ezekiel is being shown this huge room full of stoves in the New Jerusalem, in that temple that is on the outskirts of Jerusalem, or wherever it is. But there's like a whole kitchen in there with tons of stoves where people are going to be cooking. So I don't know. It's just, I feel like these are details of heaven that most of Christianity has glazed over. And I personally think it actually brings so much depth, and just for me, it makes me feel even closer to the Father, just in terms of feeling a likeness with him, and being like, yeah, I like the smell of fresh bread too. I like the smell of a good steak too.
He's going to condescend from heaven to live on earth and actually interact with you in ways that you understand.
Yes.
Oh, who'd have thought?
Yeah.
A loving, relatable God who created a world that he interacts with his inhabitants.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. But to those who've been trained in seminary theism, from a Greek philosophic understanding, they try to teach you that God is outside of creation.
Yeah.
That he's immaterial, that you're not going to actually see the Father.
Yeah.
We've done debates on this with people. Like, they literally teach you, like, you'll never see the Father. Like, even though Christ himself says in Matthew 21:10, the angels see the face of the Father in heaven.
Yeah. It's
right?
sad.
It's like they just like the Pharisees, just ignore scripture and teach their own traditions from philosophy. So it's pretty weird. We have a quick question though. Rebel Studio 777 is asking, if half the water flows west and east from Jerusalem, I'm confused, because unless you're in Africa, there is no East Sea. There is no East Sea. What do you mean? The East Sea. Okay, so with the day of the Lord, you're going to have massive topological reformation and restructuring of the land. There's many other verses that beyond just Zechariah 14 that describe the day of the Lord and everything that happens. Major earthquake, Revelation 16, that destroys all the nations of all the cities of the nations, as well as Isaiah 40, Micah chapter 4, whole bunch of other places talks about the earthquake where the land is risen up, the mountains are shaken into their valleys, land is risen up. Even in Zechariah here, it talked about a great splitting of the land itself. So you're going to have probably a new sea that we don't have today. You could have, all the water courses flowing down from the Black Sea, down from, Uzbekistan and into Iran and that whole area. That whole place could be just flooded by the time you get to this moment where all the land has been restructured after the New Jerusalem set down. So there's we don't know what the maps or the topography is going to look like exactly after all this cataclysmic restructuring of the land after the day of the Lord. That's a good question, though. Good thought. All right, so let's read the Septuagint real quick. On the right-hand side, it says, "Behold, the days of the Lord come, and your spoils shall be divided in you. I will gather all the Gentiles to Jerusalem to war, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity. But the rest of my people shall not be utterly cut off from the city. And the Lord shall go forth and fight with those Gentiles as when he fought in the day of war. And his feet shall stand in that day on the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave asunder, half of it toward the east and the west, a very great division, and half of the mountain shall lean to the north, and half of it to the south. And the valley of the mountains shall be closed up, and the valley of the mountains shall be joined onto Jesod, and shall be blocked up as it was blocked up in the days of the earthquake, in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with him. And it shall come to pass in that day that there shall be no light, and there shall be for one day cold and frost, and that day shall be known to the Lord. And it shall not be day nor night, but towards evening it shall be light."
Oh, that's worded a little.
That is worded differently. Specifically, the towards evening it shall be light, because it talks about the deep cloud cover, the sun and moon not shining on the day of the Lord. He lay back down.
Okay.
So it's interesting how it seems as if until like it's going to pass, this darkness is going to pass around the evening time.
But also, that's just interesting to me that for one day, cold and frost, even though the other one says there will be no cold or frost. So that's interesting. I could see there being some sort of crazy weather event as a result of the firmament being cracked open
and the sun and moon not shining.
Yeah, the stars fall. Like there's gonna be a lot of
it might be chilly.
A lot of wild weather that day, I think.
And in that day, living water shall come forth out of Jerusalem, half of it toward the former sea, half of it toward the latter sea, and so shall it be in summer and spring. And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day, there shall be one Lord, and his name one. This is something I wanted to comment on previously, but I'll do it now. Christ is not reigning on the earth right now.
Yeah.
No matter what churches try to tell you.
Yeah.
Christ is not. This is a deception from amillennialists' teaching. They claim, well, Christ is given all authority in heaven and earth. He's ruling over the earth right now, and that's why we're gonna make the new Jerusalem on the earth by making new converts and spreading the church. That's the amillennialist teaching that come from the Catholic Church from like the 4th, 5th century.
I mean, do they have something in their mind that we're going to somehow rise up militarily and overcome the billions of people on this earth that are not Christian? Like, I don't understand where they think
the Catholic Church does. Look at the 15th century.
Not, I mean,
but modern day
Christians doing it covertly.
Modern day Christians view it as evangelism. They think if we had more missionaries to make more converts, we're going to make the kingdom of the Lord on the earth.
Wow.
On the earth. And to which I can't seem to get one of them to actually sit down and talk with me, because the most logical question comes up, well, is Christ really going to return?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Because Revelation 11 says when he blew the 7th trumpet, it says, oh, you now have begun to take your power and reign. Only when the 7th trumpet's blown, when Christ returns, not slowly, progressively over 1700 years. So it's crazy.
My mind always immediately goes to, gosh, you guys think that 60 million abortions are taking place under Christ's reign? Like, you think he allows that in his kingdom under his reign, aside from all of the deep underground military bases and all the stuff we don't know is going on under there with all the cults and the SRA and all of that? I just am like, knowing what people know about the darkness in the world, and they think that kind of darkness is allowed to exist under his reign. I just don't get it. I mean, in a roundabout way, God is sovereign and allows all to come to pass. Okay. There's that bigger meta narrative there. But ultimately, like, if we're talking about the actual reign of Christ over his enemies, to me, every understanding I have of a kingdom and someone reigning over people, this is not what it looks like. Where a majority of the people under his reign are in complete rebellion against him.
Yeah, well, you're actually taking the definition by its definition.
Mm,
You know?
Funny. I would choose to do that.
But modern theology reinterprets it to be, oh no, he's raining from heaven, and people don't accept him because remember, much of this is infused with this Calvinistic idea that well, God is sovereign no matter where he is, and he has to be, otherwise he's not God. So that means even if Jesus is not here, he's still reigning over the kingdoms of the earth, and they didn't choose him because they weren't chosen.
It's wild.
It's a huge cope. It's a theological cope like never before. But why? Because that's where here comes this weirdo Sean Griffin that steps up and says, "Oh, by the way, since you just made that conclusion from your amillennialist theology, is the New Jerusalem literal or figurative?"
Yeah.
Because if they knew it to be literal, like as it's described in Scripture, they would never come to this amillennialist theology.
Yeah.
They would never. They would be reading these descriptions as we've been describing them today.
Yeah.
As they're plainly written.
As they're plainly written.
It's anyway. So
where were we?
This shall be the overthrow with which the Lord will smite all the nations. As many as fought against him, their flesh shall consume away while they're standing up on their feet. Their eyes shall melt out of their holes. Their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And there shall be in that day a great panic, and from the Lord upon them there shall lay hold every man of the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall be clasped with the hand of his neighbor. Judah also shall fight in Jerusalem, and God shall gather the strength of all the nations round about, gold and silver, apparel in great abundance. And this shall be the overthrow of the horses and mules and camels and asses and all the beasts that are in those camps according to this overthrow. Now this is interesting language because in the book of Jubilees, as it talks about God sending a great fire from heaven to destroy the Tower of Babel, it calls it the overthrow.
Interesting.
And here a great fire from heaven destroys these armies. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall be left of all the... And the book of Jubilees was translated from the Greek.
Oh, okay.
By the way.
Okay.
Okay. It shall come to pass that whosoever shall be left of all the nations that come against Jerusalem shall even come up every year to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall come to pass that whatsoever of all the families of the earth shall not come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, even these shall be added to the others. And if the family of Egypt shall not go up, nor come, then upon them shall be the overthrow which the Lord shall smite all the nations, whichever of them shall not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the sin of Egypt and the sin of all the nations, and whosoever shall not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This was different, wasn't it? Verse 17 was different. It doesn't mention rain.
Yes. It says even these shall be added to the others. I'm like, what others?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Now this is very different. This is very different. These two verses, because it's connecting the overthrow of what happened in the battle to the punishment upon the nations that refused to come worship him. And you know what's crazy, sweetie? It's actually consistent with Revelation 27-10, when Satan attacks the beloved city and fire comes down out of heaven to destroy them.
Right.
That's the same thing being described.
Huh. Man, New Jerusalem is just going to be zap, just throwing out those pillars of fire.
when the disciples are inside the New Jerusalem and Revelation 20 verse 10 happens, and they're looking at each other and like, see, this is what we wanted to do back with you, Jesus. Do you remember that part where the disciples were like, should we cast down fire on them, Lord?
Yes. They were so ready to go. They had no idea what they were
ready.
What they were wanting to do. Okay.
So 19, this shall be the sin of Egypt and the sin of all the nations, whoever shall not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And in that day there shall be upon the bridle of every horse holiness to the Lord Almighty, and the cauldrons of the house of the Lord shall be as bowls before the altar. And every pot in Jerusalem and Judah shall be holy to the Lord, and all that sacrifice shall come and take of them, shall seethe meat in them, and in that day there shall be no more Canaanite in the house of the Lord Almighty. So you will be eating meat in the kingdom.
Oh, yes.
You will be sacrificing in the kingdom.
Yep.
Sacrifices will return. The house of God will accept sacrifices.
Honestly, like, it's going to be this great existence where we're going to actually get to, eat the foods that we love without getting fat and obese. Like, honestly, I'm looking forward to, that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to in heaven is quality food that I know where it came from. I know it was raised right. I know it was slaughtered properly. I know it's not genetically altered.
Yeah.
And I know it's not going to make my butt grow big.
Perfect food. That's right.
I'm just excited for it.
And Monsanto and Bill Gates will be a word of derision in the mouths of all the people.
Right.
As they teach, yeah, back in the former days, before the Lord descended to the earth, mankind was being deceived by the dragon, and his lackeys were going out and telling people to create synthetic food that was not food. And the children would go, "Who would eat that, Daddy? That's crazy."
Yeah, we're gonna have a whole week discussing Bill Gates's butter, his carbon butter.
And they'll say, "Child, take your dirty flip-flop and chew on its corner. This is what mankind was eating from McDonald's." All right. It's not Gandhi's flip-flop, that's for sure. Yep. So Zechariah was a wild book.
Yeah. I will say this. Reading it through with you, I feel like I understand it much more than I thought I would. I feel like there were much less confusing passages than I remember there being. Because the last time I read Zechariah was probably like 5 years ago. Certainly before I had more understanding. And really, I would say the only two chapters, I guess, that have given me some pause. I'm like, not really sure what that means. Really was the last two that we just read, 13 and 14. I think 14 is pretty clear, though, in terms of straightforward prophecy. I mean, I have given that verse about people coming to the Feast of Tabernacles to so many of my friends on Facebook who have wanted to argue with me about keeping the law and how Jesus comes to do away with that. And we're under something new. And I'm like, but this is like, there's a clear prophecy. I mean, they all agree that like Jesus coming to the Mount of Olives and it splitting in half is like a second coming prophecy. Like they completely agree with the context of the timing of the chapter, but they throw that verse out. Like, oh, I don't know what it means. I mean, how many people have said to you in a debate when you show them a verse like that they clearly have never noticed before, and they just say to you, "Well, I'm not sure what that means. I'll have to study that more." Like nobody ever has to really answer it.
Yeah, that's what happened with Professor Solberg.
Yes.
And he was like, I don't know what that means. And I was like, well, you don't get to leave here today without giving me an answer.
And he doesn't even say, I'll get back to you on that. No, I'm not sure what that means. I'll have to look into that.
No, you don't get to just hand wave that and say, we're going to move on and continue to call me a heretic and a cult leader. If you can't answer this plainly written, massive chapter, you can't even have any kind of opinion or commentary on it. You don't get to critique anyone, bro.
Yeah.
You don't get to, like, in my opinion, you don't. How did your college allow you to be a professor by saying there's a massive portion of the Bible speaking about a day where God fights against the nations, which we've never experienced in history, and you don't even offer commentary, and they allow you to just get away with not offering commentary on something like that? That's crazy.
Look at who's running the schools.
It's
crazy, they themselves don't even know that they don't know the true gospel of the kingdom and what it's truly going to be like. Like, it's we've got a lot of work ahead of us in terms of spreading seeds of understanding on this, because for me, it just opens up my understanding in a way where it's no longer this mysterious, what's it really going to be like? And for some reason I had a comfort in not knowing, it's okay to not know. Now that I do know, and I do have the details, it's so much more real and tangible to me. I don't sit around in the mystery of it all, and I really don't know. And kind of, I just put the topic in the back burner because I'm not really going to know. We just don't have those details, but the details they're there. And really, you just want to start reading more of the details, because once you realize, oh my gosh, this is explaining exactly what the kingdom is going to be like, what life is going to be like, when you just start taking the words for what they say, it's like this comforting thing to know. It's weird because I had so many years of my life where I was like totally okay with not knowing for sure truth about things, just in general. And then becoming a Christian, the topic of heaven was something I just assumed we couldn't really know or understand. So I never really even dove into it. My papa, bless his heart, sent me a 900-page book about heaven when I got saved, which I never read because honestly, Sean came into my life and I started learning with him, and it was like, oh, how can you, what are you pulling from scripture that you're using 900 pages to describe heaven if it's not these descriptions?
Right.
Sacrifices, offerings, the city being on earth, us inheriting the earth, us rebuilding places on the earth, cleaning everything up, us teaching mortal believers, mortal people who survive that day of the Lord and need the guidance and the teaching and the sustenance. And like, I should probably go find that book and see, like flip through it and see if because I highly doubt there's anything like that in there. Because I know my papa is traditional. You die, you go to heaven. Bless his heart. He's been talking to my Nana since she passed because he thinks that she can see him and all that. So I can only imagine that the book he would send me about heaven would be that typical description of heaven. So yeah, it's mind-blowing that someone can take 900 pages to write about heaven and likely never have one mention of an offering or sacrifice. So we are ready for questions, right?
Yeah, if people want to put questions in live chat, you're welcome to.
We're done with our study. You got some people mad with that McDonald's comment. I can't remember the last time I had McDonald's. Bruno, I hear you, but I'm not going to condemn my grandfather because he's not engaging in something. He believes what in ignorance a lot of people in this world believe, that your loved ones go up to heaven and they can hear you and see you. So he is a devout Christian. He is not practicing necromancy.
Yeah, he doesn't talk to her as in trying to seek counsel or wisdom.
No, he's not. No, he misses her.
He doesn't pray to her as if she's actively listening.
No, he misses her. Yeah. And honestly, I am surprised that he has lived this long without her, because really
statistically they pass on.
Yes. And with how devoted and in love he was with her, I was definitely, I'm pleased to see that he is still with us. But yeah, that is something that I don't think is going to keep him from the kingdom of heaven. Okay. So
Emmanuelville, I think Emmanuelville, I can't even see these people's names anymore. Like YouTube really did something weird, man.
You don't see it right there?
I see it. I said I can't say it because it's not. This has been assigned to them. These are not normal names.
Oh.
They normally, when you put your tag, your handle in, it's what you chose as your username.
I'm going to see what mine says.
Anyway, I'm just going to say the first part here, Emmanuel. It's my theory. It's my understanding of putting all the pieces together that in Revelation 9, those who are being stung by these things that come out of the pit with Apollyon and they're in torment for 5 months, that is the mark. That the mark is whatever you were stung by, these hybrid type of scorpion, lion-faced, lion teeth, man-faced flying creatures that are just first described as locusts, and then given more description the further you read, that they're this weird type of hybrid whose stingers, I think whatever they're stinging you with, is the mark of the beast itself that is changing you. It's like making you like a zombie, basically. It's like you're not in control of yourself anymore. They're injecting you with something, is my opinion, which is why there's 5 months of torment after you've been stung by this thing. And therefore you then are, under the control, if you will, of the beast. Why it's called the mark of the beast. So
that's not in caps, but it is a question.
We would strongly suggest not hunting on the Sabbath per all the scriptures that talk about it, to gather your food and water before the Sabbath. Emergency situation, life and death, yes, you can hunt on the Sabbath. But as far as in a normal scenario where it's not life and death, the scriptures instruct us for 6 days out of the week, we have our time to store up our food and water so that we can then have it already inside of our house on the 7th day and then be able to cook it up at that point. So
yeah, I would say the only time it could be permissible would be a matter of literally life and death. Like
life
you're
and death.
Somehow out in the wilderness.
So yeah, Juliet, we do not ascribe to Judaism. If you're going to read Judaism, they have a whole bunch of traditions they've added on to the Sabbath instructions. So what I gave you is a compilation of Sabbath instructions from Jubilees and Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and not and even Nehemiah, but not rabbinical Judaism and all their traditions they've added onto it.
That's a question.
This is another one. Zion is asking, eating animals humanely killed is allowed now. Maybe there will be a way to sacrifice animals and eat them without harming them or causing them pain. What are your thoughts on this? Well, for one, I think harming them and causing them pain is subjective.
Mhm.
The proper slaughtering, we're told that if you cut their neck properly in the right spot, that it doesn't cause them pain. They just go to sleep as the blood drains. Again, harming them, causing them pain can be very subjective on what you think is harming or causing pain. But essentially eating them, most people would consider harming them eating them, right? Because you're literally eating them. But again, we have to adopt our mind to what the Creator described as food for us, not what vegans whom are pulling from ancient Hindu theology of the sacred cow worship. We're not pulling from all that,
or even our own emotions, because cows and lambs and some goats, like, they're cute, okay, and you can form little relationships with them as pets. And in our culture, I saw this really funny clip from some Jim Brewer stand-up where he was talking about how other countries, America is different in how they treat animals compared to other countries, because he took his wife to Egypt and they were going for a camel ride, and the way that those Arabs treat their camels is, they're just hitting them with sticks, it's not a loving, these aren't pets. They are.
Balaam had a stick for that donkey.
Yes. And America is becoming more and more sensitive when it comes to that concept. Now, we know the scriptures say that we are to care for the animals, but our modern society really struggles with being emotionally attached to the animals to a point where we feel bad about eating them, and we think that it's causing them harm or doing them wrong, when really it's just part of having dominion over them. And some of them were made to be food, so they don't have any hard feelings towards us. I think animals, whatever capacity they have to think and understand, I think they have the ability to think and understand. They
don't expect eternity.
Yeah, what God brought them here to do. Like that donkey didn't run away from Balaam and say, "How dare you mistreat me?"
I'm going to HR.
Yeah, no, he's like, "Hey, what did I do to you, bro?" And then went on with their relationship together. So I do think that, and I'm speaking about myself too. I'm not like speaking down to people about being emotionally attached to animals. I have dogs. And before I had a child, my dogs were very much like my babies, So it's a struggle in our country to separate those things. The true purpose of animals that got, even dogs. I have been coming out of this dog mom like mentality I was in for so many years, as I've learned about some very frightening statistics about certain breeds of dogs in our country. And I am seeing how dangerous it's actually become to make dogs no longer working animals. And specifically, we're bringing specific breeds into our homes that were bred for very specific work. And then we wonder why these dogs act out in certain ways, And it's like, that's because that's what they were designed to do. That's what they were, selectively bred for over generation after generation. So, it's something that, God has been, doing a separation within me in terms of having a proper biblical perspective on these things. And animals is a huge part of that, because, it can really affect our judgment in bad ways. So anyways, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
Incarnate Unlimited, thank you so much for the generous super chat, man. I really appreciate that. He says, you are by far the most accurate to the word theological presenters I've come across since Rob Skiba and Russ Dizdar were killed. Thank you for all you do. And I mean all. Okay. Awesome, bro. Appreciate you. Yeah, that's great.
Nice pun.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you for the generosity and thank you for the compliments. If only other people in the Torah crowd had your opinion. All right. I do not. I don't know anything like that. Torah Sisters, do you know if they create anything like that? I don't. There's an online group on Facebook called Torah Sisters. I think that's what they're called. I think they even have a YouTube group, YouTube page as well. But I don't know. I don't know anything like that, man. I apologize. So if anyone out there wants to make one,
do you not want to answer that one?
what?
Oh, that one.
All right. Emmanuel's asking, are home workouts allowed on Sabbath? Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with exercise. You're not working for profit. You're not making other. I mean, I wouldn't go to the gym. I wouldn't go to a public gym where you've paid a membership fee and you're causing people to work for you as a result of that. But if you want to do a home workout, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I think the hang up there, again, this is a psychological thing because we call it working out. I think that's why people struggle. Oh, it's work. It's work. No, I mean, it's exercise. It's a good, healthy thing for your body to get exercise. So if you're going to, just for the people out there who may be struggling with this, with being a little too maybe harsh about this, if you can't exercise on the Sabbath because it's considered working, then are you just sitting all day? Like you don't walk anywhere? Because any step you're taking is exercise. If you go for a walk, you're exercising. So where would you draw the line? That's what I would encourage anyone out there who may be struggling with that one to think about.
Tiago, you're asking how to explain our father being a man to a woman that was slightly influenced by feminism. It's hard to say, brother, without knowing the woman, without knowing any context of what she's disagreeing with the scriptures about. I mean, all we can point to is other religions that viewed the feminine goddesses and gods as feminine or androgynous or just straight up females as ultimate gods they worshipped. And that is the opposite of the God of Israel. He's considered a father, a male, and so he's not a woman. Feminism is anti-man. It just depends on what kind of, again, I would need to know the context. There's so much here that I could say or go in a different vein, but I'd just be wasting my time because I don't really know this person and their complaints.
Yes, because actually, as we've learned, even it can even be a Christian theological position that influences someone to struggle with God being a man, because when we get into the nitty and gritty with these Trinitarians and we talk about God having a body, they do not like that, and I see some of them go into the route of, well, the Holy Spirit has a feminine element. There's that whole weird crowd. So I would say that it's even more than just feminism that can influence someone to struggle with that idea of God being a man, not in the literal sense of being an earthly man, but gender wise. Really, I would just be praying for that person and maybe not try to make an issue of it. Let God sort it out with them, because that's something they just have to come to be okay with. Like when God got me, I was heavily indoctrinated into feminist thought. And for me, it was a comforting thing to realize that God was this strong male presence, because I really needed a strong male presence in my life. And I had realized I did. And then I did not want to be a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. Like I wanted to at least need God, And there was something unique about the feeling of the male presence from him, and that fatherly presence that I realized I had been struggling with not having for a very long time. So yeah, that's a hard question to answer without a lot more detail.
Okay. David D.C. Collins is asking, can we go over chapter 14, verse 13 differences? We went right past it on both passes. It appears the Masorite took out his hand shall be joined with the hand of his neighbor. Okay. So Masoretic Septuagint, both together. To me, it seems like the context of this, I didn't think that I skipped it. I thought we talked about it being in reference to a parallel passage from 2 Ezra chapter 13, where it says the armies that come against the Lord on that day will start fighting each other. And that's what I see the Masoretic teaching here, so that each will seize the hand of another, and the hand of one another, of one, will rise against the other. In the same way, I see the same great panic in the Septuagint. They shall lay hold of every man the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall clasp with the hand of his neighbor. And I think that's just another way of saying what the Masoretic translates.
Locked in battle.
Yeah.
Is a phrase we
Yeah.
use. Like,
and in all the context of this whole passage, that's why I gave us a parallel comparison passage from 2nd Ezra 13, talking about the nations that Christ battles on this day. They get so scared, they try to turn and run, but as a result, they end up just turning on each other. So imagine, David, I don't know if you've ever been in the military or not, but imagine when you have a mobilization of troops in a large number, as it says, a countless number, a sea of troops in the valley of Megiddo or the valley of Armageddon. If you go, you can look up that valley today in pictures in Israel today. It's just farmland. And if that whole thing was full of people, and there's only certain valleys, or I should say certain exit ways out of that valley through the different mountain passes, then those are choke points. And if everyone's trying to leave, because here comes the angels from the sky and Christ looking very, very, very fearsome coming down from above, people are going to try to leave, but they're just going to run into each other. So it means they're going to try to push others out of the way, which is going to cause fighting. And this is an amalgamation of armies according to the scriptures. It's the valley. It's all the armies that are coming against them are from different nations. So inherently, they're probably not going to all speak the same language. They are going to be in complete terror and panic, and they're going to start fighting each other as they try to flee from what they see coming down through the sky to battle them. So this is my understanding of verse 13, but I appreciate the question. All right. Vivid Life is asking, do you have insight on why Revelation 20 verse 13, the sea is specified separately from death and Hades? I see allusions to this from time to time in other scriptures as well. Okay. And you're wanting me to specify why you think that this word sea is separated from death and Hades in verse 13. The sea gave up the dead, and death and Hades gave up their dead, and each one was judged according to his deeds. So there's a lot of people that have died in the sea. So it's an interesting concept as far as, I think it's in the Apocalypse of Baruch that talks about people being raised from the place from where they were dead, from where they died, excuse me, which is why in the context of it mentioning that in the Apocalypse of Baruch, it talks about people recognizing those who have been raised to eternal life because they died. They were raised in the same territory geographically of where they died. So that makes sense. People recognize them because they were raised back in their town that they died. So therefore people recognize them. You know what I'm saying? So that's an interesting thought. And if that's the case, there will be a lot of people who die, who have died throughout all of history in the sea. So they'll be raised up from the sea. Now, a lot of people will say that the word sea is just a idiom for the people. But it's hard it's hard to give that interpretation because the people are what's being raised. Okay. So if you were to say, well, the people gave up its dead, well, that the people aren't holding dead. The people are the ones who are dead and whom are held in Sheol. But it's about how they're being raised. So this particular resurrection here is this is what Paul referenced in Acts 24 is the resurrection of the wicked. So this is what he said, I do believe everything written in the prophets, and I do believe in the resurrection of the righteous and the wicked. We've already seen the resurrection of the righteous, 1 and 2, but this is the end of millennial reign, and it's the resurrection of the wicked. So all the dead will be raised from where they died, apparently, according to the Apocalypse of Baruch. And as a result, this is talking about the point where they resurface, if I could put it like that. They've been raised. They're the resurrection of the wicked. They're raised up from the land of the earth. It's not a ball. It's covered by a firmament. They're raised up from all the place under the earth where they died throughout all the centuries. And a deeper point of their origin from where they're being raised is death and Hades from down below, the underworld, from where they've been kept in the unrighteous side of Sheol all this time. And then they're judged according to their deeds. So just like in the resurrection of the saints of the righteous, they're raised up to the earth from where they died, from everywhere under the heaven, all over the plane of the earth, and then gathered to the New Jerusalem. In the same way, the wicked will be raised and then gathered to Yeshua, whose his throne is next to the lake of fire, because he's about to throw them in the lake of fire. So they're all gathered to the New Jerusalem, to Yeshua's throne, to be judged and destroyed in the lake of fire. So that means they're going to be gathered from every place under the heaven where they've been raised for this judgment. And I do believe there'll probably be an angelic escort with them. You're not just going to have like Hitler's not just going to pop up again in Argentina and then just be like, oh, I'm going to hide from this judgment. No, I'm pretty sure they'll be heavenly escorted. Who knows? We may be the escorts at that point.
I always read this with the idea of Sheol being a watery place and waters of the deep, and like that being a whole sea down there, you know. So that's, and then and death and Hades, I kind of always read it as like the way that the Bible repeats itself a lot of times, the same more than one time in one sentence, you know, like they go.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I'm just saying there's quite a few passages that describe Sheol as a waterless pit, but as they're raised, they do seem to go through a level of water, which is interesting.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just speaking in terms of the actual makeup of the crust, for lack of a better word, of the earth. You know, that's kind of how I always pictured what that meant by sea.
So Flatless is asking, how do you feel about Christians who keep the Sabbath but think it's Sunday? Well, I think that they're wrong. That's how I feel about it. I think they're mistaken. I think they've been taught bad doctrine, and I pray that God brings them to a better understanding of his word. He clearly defines the Sabbath as the seventh day and calls it eternal. It's literally what he observes on this seventh day. And so I just pray that he brings them to a better understanding as they continue to disciple. So did you want to say anything on this one?
I guess, you know, what do you mean by how do we feel about them? Like, if you're asking, do we feel that they're all going to go to the lake of fire? No. Sean and I are pretty outspoken and have been the whole time we've had this channel that we don't believe Christians who are misled about some of the commandments are just not of the faith, or they're following the anti-Messiah or anything like that. You know, we believe God ultimately is the judge of all of us. And there are times of ignorance that God is well aware of. And, you know, he's going to hold everyone accountable accordingly. So, yeah, I would just say we don't think they're all lawless apostates who are just headed for lake of fire.
I feel like in Matthew 5, 17 and 18, Christ actually speaks on this, about those who do and teach against the commandments will be considered least in the kingdom. I think there's an amount of mercy because like we've tried to share so many times, people are already keeping instinctively as they come into the churches, they're keeping like 85% of God's Torah. They're just not doing the feast, the Sabbath, the tzitzits, and the dietary.
And they don't call it Torah or commandments necessarily.
But they're doing Torah.
They don't get that it's Torah, but it's Torah.
And for all the Torah observant people out there, I need to remind you guys, lovingly, that Christians are doing the law of God, which is Torah. They just don't call it that because they've been taught poorly about some of the terminology even. You know what I'm saying? The word Torah is just a Hebrew word, right? It just means instruction or law. And so many Christians, when you say, even the ones that think that they don't have to do the Sabbath or the dietary or whatever, they'll say, oh yeah, I want to follow God. I'm not going to murder. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to kidnap. I'm not going to use unjust weights and measures. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the farmers will say, I'm not going to sow two different seeds in the same field because they know better just from practical application. But yeah, they'll also be against bestiality, homosexuality. They'll be against all these other things that we in these Torah observant communities would call Torah. They already are against as well. They're even against abortion. They're against, you know, like they're also against these things that are considered against God's law and unrighteousness. It's just, they've been sold a weird description of the terminology. And the terminology is what trips them up. And they don't realize they're already keeping the greater majority of the Torah.
Yeah.
and they strive to do so with a sincere heart and dedication to Christ. And so this is why we always have lovingly tried to tell the Torah community, stop condemning them.
Yeah.
If you have more understanding, then it's more of your responsibility to be more patient, more kind, more loving. Come to a place of trying to teach them with all patience. You can't just say, "Oh, I tried to tell you and you didn't listen. I want you to wash my hands of you and you're condemned." You're not a prophet to be in that place. So let's just we try to love everyone and bring them to a better understanding of the scriptures. All right. So KB's asking, how do you recommend a wife to navigate when her husband does not see the importance of following Torah? Sweetie.
Meekly, quietly, not overbearing, not trying to change him or force him to see it your way. You're really going to have to find it within yourself to give him to God, let God handle it. Do the commandments as you know how, and I would encourage you to have the attitude of, it's okay if you don't see this the way I do. I feel you've got to really just come to the place of, I feel a real conviction about this and I really need to follow this conviction. It's okay if that's not where you're at. I don't, like, you really need to be making it clear that this is not going to drive a wedge between you two. Because Paul addresses this, he talks about you can win over your spouse in your behavior towards them. So my biggest advice would be not to go down any routes that involve Torah terrorism, pagan policing, making ultimatums with holidays or anything like that. We have a video you can go watch called "What Do I Do If My Friends and Family Don't Keep Torah?" And we do a whole 2.5 hour live stream about this topic. I would also encourage you to reach out to Rachel LeClaire. This is Andrew LeClaire's wife. Andrew LeClaire from Outside the Camp is what his channel's called. Rachel went through that exact thing with her husband, and they're both keeping Torah now. And now her husband is teaching Torah and trying to, bring it to the churches. So she would be a good lady to talk to in terms of someone who had actual experience with it. And I'm pretty sure she went about it the right way, where she was not trying to change her husband. She just was trying to live out what she understood. She was lovingly trying to show him what she was seeing in the scriptures, and then letting him take the lead on deciding if that's what he was going to follow. And he's following Torah now, fully following Torah, I should say. So I would definitely encourage you reaching out to them and seeing if Rachel would share some of her testimony about that with you, because she's been through it.
Vivalife. Yeah, many of the feminine goddesses of the ancient cultures were actually just the female versions of the male goddess.
Yeah.
For example, Vishnu, the female Kali, was the female goddess of Vishnu. Kali was a bloodthirsty cannibal, a goddess of judgment.
Mhm.
And Atum, the Egyptian god Atum, was said that he could be changed genders at any time, and so he was a transgender, literally. That was what they claimed of him anyway. And so, yeah, I agree. It's all a ruse anyway, but I agree.
Yeah, and so many of those gods and goddesses were just based on Nephilim, chimera, monsters, demons anyways. So yeah, they would have very demonic, unfeminine-like traits. Disclaimer.
Okay, Donna Porter, she's saying, M2I has actually children's curriculum on their website. Website is there in the comments. Now we just also want to say, guys, we appreciate the efforts of MPOI. We just do not agree with all their teachings. We just want to say it like that.
We're not partnered with them.
We're not partnered with them.
They're not a sister ministry or anything.
We also, I don't say this gently. We've also heard reports from people that have been a part of their in-person fellowship and how it gets a little controlling. Mm-hmm. And we would
caution.
We would just use caution with anybody you're listening to. Just try to use your caution and judgment, because there's a lot of Judaism mixed in with M2I.
Yeah.
All right. So, Tiago, I'm guessing this is your follow-up from earlier. You're saying she struggles with the idea that the men was the first. Why not a woman if they can carry a child? I said that the men brings the seed, but she has some trauma with abusive men.
Oh, okay. I can help here.
Okay.
So you can try to offer her this perspective that I think a lot of people glaze over. God did all this creating. He created the earth. He created the seas, the stars, the sun, the moon. He created all these animals. He creates man, and he looks and he's like, something's still just not right. It's not quite good enough. And so what does he do? He creates woman. And here's what's special about woman and wives. Angels were not, there are no women in heaven. Angels were not given wives. That's why they lusted after women and they came and took wives against the law. That's how special women are. We were the cherry on top of the creation cake. So regardless of biology, God doesn't need a woman to create mankind. He can create mankind from whatever he wants. But not only did he create women as like this final glorious act, we're like this very special creation. But he created us from the rib of man. So there's this deep connection now between men and women. And he could have created woman out of the dust of the earth, just like he did with the man. But that's another thing that's special about women. We were created from the rib of man. So is it any wonder that so many of us are wandering this earth seeking for that one person? There's this natural drive within us. So I would encourage you to encourage her to consider a different perspective, that it's not some tit for tat competition. Men came first, therefore they're better, they're more important, they're whatever she's been told by feminism, and have her look at it that way, that God looked at creation and was like, just men and a bunch of animals here? No, not good enough. I need something really special to cap off this
Super
creation
special.
with, and it's so special that even the angels don't get women and wives. And when we're resurrected and we're resurrected woman, we're a whole unique creation in that sense too. So I would encourage you to maybe plant some seeds with a different perspective from women being actually a very special creation that angels didn't get.
I always wondered if at the end of the first week when Adam named all the animals and no suitable helpmate was found for him, if Adam, under his breath was like, I'm kind of bored. And God was like, oh yeah, I'm going to give you a creation so special. So very special.
Busy.
You're going to be kept on your toes for your entire life.
I mean,
I'm going to give you a creation that will cause you to turn to me.
There's a lot of bad we can look at in the past, even in the present, with how men have treated women. But we can also look at, the things that men did for women and out of love for women, I mean, there's a lot of romance involved in chivalry and just, stories of, empires going to war on behalf of a woman that was taken. I mean, we see what Dinah's brothers did on her behalf, when she was violated. So I would just, encourage her to consider another perspective, because that's not the only one.
Thank you so much, Light Source Ministries, for that super chat. Appreciate your generosity. So just want to thank you both for what you're doing with the ministry. Your Babylon series, debates, and seminars are second to none. Hey, man, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
Edwin, we don't take issue with cremation. People have died throughout history. Believers have died throughout history, being drowned and burned, eaten by animals, all that kind of stuff. So God, the resurrection, you get a new body. You don't get back this old body. This one decomposes, goes back to the earth. You get a new body at the resurrection that's not made of the dirt of the earth. You're made of water and spirit. So how you die doesn't matter. Awesome, David. Yeah, David, I don't know why I even guessed that you may have been in the military, but it came to my mind. So that's awesome, brother. Thanks for your service also.
Yeah, instead of being worried about men coming first, just be like, "Hey, he saved the best for last." Okay, like if you need a confidence boost, if that's what the concept of man being first is doing for you, hey, best for last.
All right. Gordon is asking, do you believe do you believe that the understanding of the Sabbath will become more important as we move closer to the end, since it's considered the mark of God versus the mark of the beast? Um, Technically, no, brother. I just believe that it's one of the commandments of God that people are drawn to. Like the prophets of God remind people of repentant heart coming to, which is embodied in love. Christ describes the love of people growing cold at his coming. So this is where um, technically, people you can still love people and be ignorant of the Sabbath. I did it for years until I became aware of the Sabbath. And so I don't think the Sabbath is the biggest focus in the eschatology and the end times and that kind of thing. I do understand that both circumcision and the Sabbath are considered an outward sign that you're in covenant with Yahweh. But I don't see anything in Revelation in contrast to the mark of the beast saying they're going to go and check people's circumcision and observe their habits for Sabbath observance. I just see it saying saints will be persecuted, some will be taken into captivity, some will be killed if you don't take the mark.
Yeah, and in terms of a mark for God's holy people, we have descriptions of keeping his commandments as a mark, like that sets us apart from society. But there is a description in Ezekiel of an angel being sent out to put an actual spiritual mark on people's heads
That were righteous.
So if there is an alternative to the mark of the beast somehow that's going to help angels identify who is God's, kind of like the blood did at the time of the Passover, I would think it's going to be from that prophecy describing angels going out and doing that spiritually. So just something to think about.
Yeah, it's possible. All right. Miss Kelly's asking, what should a wife do when her Christian husband wants her to profane the Sabbath and calls her derogatory names and mistakes and makes her miserable so she'll give in? All right. Miss Kelly, I would strongly encourage two forms of counsel. First one being, if you're a part of a church and you have people that you can trust at the church, I would request counsel with the pastors of the church, including one of the pastor's wives or a female counselor being there, in addition to the men as well, and make sure they're actually qualified, not just the pastor, but if they have any kind of counseling experience, to be qualified, because this is deeper than just you guys not agreeing on observing the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
This is a deeper issue. If this is his response to the wife in this regard, this is a much deeper issue of his discipleship and lack of maturity, his lack of respect,
Mm-hmm.
and his lack of being tender and delicate with his wife is much different, because essentially what you're asking for is to not work on things like bird's eye view of what maybe not you, but what this wife in this scenario is asking for is to take a day off of work one day out of the week. Not that you're saying that. I mean, again, we've told people for years. I just need to go through some of the the different veins of this. We've told people for years that we don't encourage people to stop going to your Sunday church. If you want to attend a Sabbath fellowship and replace it for your Sunday observance somewhere, that's fine. If you want to go to both, that's fine. If you don't have a Sabbath fellowship in your area and you want to set that day apart to God as the scriptures describe, take the day off from work and focus on the Lord and your family and rest, that's fine. And then on that Sunday, want to go to a church because it's the only fellowship of Christians in your area, even though they're poorly informed on this particular topic, that's also fine, right? So we're not discouraging people to stop engaging with their local church. If the local church is fueling this husband's behavior and causing this type of response from the husband, And in promoting that type of response, that's a huge problem with the leadership at that church. I would seek professional counseling. Okay. So I've given 2 scenarios here. One is seeking leadership at the church, male and female present if possible, someone that's an actual qualified counselor through the church. And if it's a small church and you don't have that available to you, I would also seek professional counseling. And I would be wary of the attitude that this husband is responding to this wife is not about the Sabbath. It's a deeper issue.
Yeah.
And he needs to be counseled by men in the faith to change his attitude and be softer with his wife and to be able to have a conversation so it doesn't devolve into this. Okay. If the church, though, and those elders in that church are fueling this husband's behavior, then don't seek counsel from that church. Go to a professional counselor. That would be the best I could offer in this situation. What would you say, honey?
Actually, I couldn't say it any better. I mean, that would have been I would have given the same advice. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a deeper issue than just theological differences.
Hey, Nathan, thanks so much for the super chat, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for the generosity. You're welcome, KB. MTOI means Messianic Torah Observant
Israel.
Fellowship.
Messianic Torah
Israel.
Observant Israel. Teacher is Brother Steve Berkson.
Gordon's asking, Rachel has been on other channels and been interviewed about her homeschool journey. Would you be open to having her on and sharing her testimony with her husband on how they came to Torah? Who?
Rachel LeClaire.
Oh, I didn't realize that she has I didn't know that she was doing interviews. So yeah, no, we're not. We already have Andrew on. I don't know how long you've been watching this, Gordon, but we have Andrew on lots in the last 2 years.
You know, maybe when they're here for Sukkot.
Yeah, we might be able to see them in person.
Hopefully they're going to be passing through our area of the country around Sukkot time. So we're trying to coordinate with them. So maybe they can come by and do that in person. That'd be fun.
That'd be great.
That'd be really cool.
Have an excuse to actually have everyone sit on the couch.
That's right.
Hey, Juan, thank you so much for the generous super
Thanks,
chat,
brother.
man. Thank you for the support. We appreciate you, brother.
Yes, we appreciate you, Juan.
When I was young, I was in 3rd grade. I went to it was a special class for like gifted kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Peak, which is pretty hilarious. This was 1980s, guys. So there was no political correctness there. This special class, it was an acronym called Peak. And we went like every Wednesday, they would take us out of class from like 9 a.m. until lunchtime. And we would go to this separate class, just these kids that were part of the Peak program. Peak stood for Privileged Education for Advanced Kids. I know it would not fly today. Right?
Ours was GT, gifted and talented.
Yeah,
like all the other kids weren't.
When the first day that I was selected to go to this classroom, they all gave us names in Spanish, and I was given Juan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Juan.
Because they were starting to learn Spanish at the time.
Even as like a 5th grader, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, once I was getting into the GT program, and we got to do so much fun stuff in that program. And then as I got into high school, it wasn't a separate program. We had they were like AP classes, but it was still it was honors, honors English, that kind of thing. And we never had any homework. We did tons of projects and field trips. And the way that we learned was so much more engaging and, in my opinion, effective. And even as a child, I looked at the other kids who weren't in this program and thought, how unfair to them that they don't get to experience education and learning in this way that is so effective. Yeah. Like I'm remembering that, you know, there's a lot of stuff I learned in school I don't remember, but so much of what I did in the Gifted and Talented program in my honors classes has stuck with me because it was such a different kind of hands-on learning. And I always thought, well, no wonder the other kids, you know, don't come across as good students or aren't scoring high in tests and things like that. Like they're the ones being forced to sit in a class and like in all my general classes and just regurgitate information onto a test. They're not engaging in this really fun kind of education. So it was always disappointing to me, and always seemed very unfair that the general kids didn't get to learn in a way that I feel like most kids would benefit learning in those kind of dynamic ways, rather than just sitting in a classroom memorizing stuff.
Flatless, no. Again, the Sabbath is about not working for money, your vocation, your job, and not making other people work their vocation on your behalf. Getting together with some people and cooking some food up in a park, you're not breaking the Sabbath, guys. So study Exodus 31 as far as details for the Sabbath. I would also study Jubilees chapter 2 and chapter 50, and it gives you a good little well-rounded explanation of the Sabbath and how to observe it. We also have video if you want to type in Kingdom in Context in the YouTube search bar. Kingdom in Context, how to keep the Sabbath. I've done breakdown videos on that as well in the past. So yeah, it's very simple to keep the Sabbath, guys. Do not listen to Judaism about keeping the Sabbath. They've made it so complicated that it's just a burden. It's ridiculous.
In fact, don't listen to Christianity about keeping the Sabbath either, because they just think everything the Jews do for the Sabbath must be what the Bible says to do for the Sabbath.
They're just repeating the bad nonsense.
Yeah.
Read the scriptures about the Sabbath, and it's very simple, guys. It's not a burden.
Yeah. The only circumstances that would break the Sabbath is if, like in our town, we've got a park that's got some really nice pavilions that people can rent out, and people are partying in those pavilions all the time in our little town. That would be the only way that you could break the Sabbath by going to a barbecue in a park, is if you're paying to rent a pavilion to have the barbecue in. But if it's just like a regular park that's just got their grills out and you can just go sit down and have a barbecue there, that's definitely not unlawful.
Hang on. We're back off mute now.
Yeah, Kelly. Yeah, your husband. We see you've got more details in here. Your husband really needs discipleship. There really needs to be someone here.
If that's her husband she's talking about.
Yeah, if it's yours, if you're not talking about your husband, then your friend's husband. Yeah.
Yeah, all those examples you gave, that he's got much bigger issues.
Yeah.
That need to be addressed. Also, just as something like getting his own license and car, but yeah. See.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's things going on there.
Yeah. Yep. Much bigger problem there.
Well, we're celebrating Sukkot like we do every year, but we are not hosting any kind of gathering or anything. So sorry, guys. We're so far in the mountains in Wyoming, people wouldn't drive to us anyway. It would be a massive drive for most people. The only reason the Leclercs are doing it because they're already driving around the country.
Yeah, they're already traveling, so they're going to be in this area.
For most people, it's a long plane ride to our vicinity, and then another drive into the mountains where we are. So like, it's not, and it's just honestly, we're not in a place to do that right now.
Yeah.
So we don't have land. We don't have the proper setup. We're just not. We're not. We're observing Sukkot as a family this year, like we do every year.
Monster High Girl, if you're still here, probably not, but God bless you. And we just all pray for the seeds that have been planted in your heart today.
Yeah, I hope you've been listening the whole time.
Because I was you like 10 years ago, girl. So I've been there. I feel you, girl. I know what it's like, but he'll get you one of these days if he's going to get you.
Hey, thank you so much, Joe Junction, for gifting those memberships.
Awesome. Thank you.
Guys, if you were gifted a membership, that's YouTube just randomly dispersing them. We have no control over that. But if you were gifted one of those memberships, you're welcome to check out all of our members' videos. We're continuing to add more to them over time. But we have a lot already of over 100 plus hours of additional content you can access. Edwin, thank you so much for the super chat, brother. You're asking, I got to say, you and your wife have been helpful in my walk with the Lord. So many questions that I had this year, I feel like they get answered.
Awesome. Hallelujah.
Hey, awesome, bro. Thanks. That's our goal.
Praise
is
the
to
Lord.
help bring clarity so people can walk better with the God. He's amazing. So there's, yeah. Thank you, brother.
That's a good question, actually, because
All right, let me read it real quick. Okay, so Juan's asking next to 1629 talks about not leaving your place. Can you explain this to me, please? Yes. So this was in the context of them being in the wilderness in their tents, the manna falling from heaven, them not leaving their tents to go pick up more manna. Not that they were required to never be able to leave their house for Sabbath. Otherwise, you have a conflict with Leviticus 23, which tells you that the Sabbath is a holy convocation, to where while the temple was active and there, they were expected to actually come forward with sacrifices. And the priesthood was ministering that day as well. And it was a holy convocation. They would come forward on the Sabbath and hear the words of the Lord be read. And so if you couldn't leave your house, you couldn't abide by that holy convocation. So there's context to Exodus 16, even in how they're supposed to cook it and everything. This is why if you want to check out a better explanation on can I cook on the Sabbath, type in the YouTube search bar, Kingdom in Context, can I cook on the Sabbath? I did a video on this years ago. Go through all the verses, try to help you have a better understanding on that as well. A lot of people take Exodus 16 and that story's context out of context to apply it to every Sabbath. It's confusing. It messes them up.
That was what I was going to say, is that Exodus 16 is not a chapter that should be used to dictate a list of things to and not do on the Sabbath, because Exodus 16 was a very specific context, a very specific time frame, with God doing very specific things at the time and sending the manna and the quail. Like that was a little time capsule of a chapter for us. It's not a prescriptive chapter. It's a descriptive chapter where it's describing this time in the wilderness for these people, but it's not a universal decree to anyone reading the book that this is eternal law here for everybody reading. So I think that's one, because I'll tell you guys, when Sean and I first got together, I thought everything I had learned about keeping the Sabbath came from people who were taking verses from this chapter completely out of context. So I thought we couldn't cook on the Sabbath. So here Sean and I are, we've moved in together, and he's making breakfast on Shabbat, and I'm warming up my little, microwave meal, because somehow that's not cooking on the Sabbath. And I think it was like 2 Sabbaths went by where he cooked and I didn't say anything to him. And then like the 3rd Sabbath, I was like, so are we breaking the Sabbath if you're making pancakes? And he's like, where does it say not to cook on the Sabbath? And I'm like, open it up. As
the microwave dings in the background.
And then he's like, let's read that chapter. So I read the chapter and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like this is not a prescriptive command. This is specifically to these people in this time about that specific food. Even they could cook the quail whenever. It was the manna that they couldn't,
because it's spoiled. Specifically because it's spoiled.
They had to cook ahead of time. So
not because it was unlawful to cook on the Sabbath, just because the manna spoiled. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that Judaism has absconded about the Sabbath.
Yeah. So file Exodus 16 in the historical part of your brain, not the prescriptive, here's a list of commandments part of your brain.
AJ, I'm interested if you're Orthodox, because if what you're saying is true, that Orthodox Christians respect and are supposed to keep the Sabbath holy, then how do you guys address the Council of Laodicea in 383? I believe it was Edict 29 that directly declares that Christians are no longer to keep the Sabbath. Yeah. Specifically the 7th-day Sabbath.
Yeah. And I have an Orthodox friend on my Facebook. Really lovely guy, actually. He is very different than a lot of the ortho bros that we see. So he's not rude. He's someone I enjoy conversing with. And I have asked him every time he has tried to evangelize on a post of mine about the Orthodox Church, and he tries to appeal to my Torah nature, and because he was supposedly in the Torah crowd. I don't know for how long, but he brings up that Orthodox, we honor the Sabbath. And I will directly ask him, okay, so do you guys have a Sabbath mass? Is there, when I look up Orthodox churches, I don't see Sabbath services. I don't see anywhere that's encouraging people to keep the Sabbath holy. Like he never responds when we get to that point in the conversation. Yeah. He's got busy, got something to do, forgets to come back to the thread. So I've seen another Orthodox person say that, but I haven't gotten an answer of, okay, well, why don't I see that in practice? I don't see any Orthodox people refusing to work on the Sabbath on the 7th day, Saturday, so yeah.
We'd love to hear. I've invited Orthodox priests to come on for interviews, and they they've responded a couple times and they stop responding. So, because many times when you invite someone on, the email thread is like multiple responses before they finally accept, some of them want to know like all the questions laid out ahead of time, they want to know all that kind of stuff. But if you know of an Orthodox priest that would be willing to interview and let me ask him about the faith, I'm not trying to attack him. I have genuine questions about what the Orthodox teach and believe. And I'm very interested if they'd be willing to come on and talk about it and, defend what they believe and teach. Not that I'm going to be attacking them, but just simply that, I have questions. And so, I would love to know, because that's a wild claim that they observe the Sabbath when they have the Council of Laodicea telling them they don't. All right. So Time to See is asking about, what if you pay for a pavilion beforehand, not on the Sabbath? You're still paying for it. This is our understanding. I mean, just because you're not exchanging money on the day of doesn't mean you're not purchasing it for the day of to be used in maintenance on the day of. So that means if there's anything that they have to do with that pavilion in order for it to be maintenance on that day, I mean, you're still paying them to reserve your spot and maintenance there.
This is our thing. Sean and I understand that there's nuance, because there are some things where you may have to prepay for them as a necessity. Like if you're traveling over the course past 7 days and you're going to have to stay in a hotel somewhere because you can't sleep in your car on the side of the road, you'll be paying for that hotel ahead of time. And now you can put the do not disturb thing on your door so they don't come in and clean that day. Those are the kind of ways that Sean and I approach that kind of situation.
Your utility bills.
Yeah, your utilities, the mail, if your trash comes on Saturdays, some of those things are out of our control. Some of those things are necessities that we believe that there's grace in the law for those things. Something like having a barbecue on Shabbat, to me, that's not a necessity. That's something that you can plan around. If you can find a park where you don't have to rent the pavilion, we've got parks that have pavilions in our town that they're not rented out. They're just there and free for public use.
But what we said earlier, which is what most parks have, is that they have grills out there that are not pay for use,
right?
That are not upon reservation, and even if they don't, bring your grill.
Yeah, Walmart has like $20
bring
grills.
your grill and set it 100 feet away from the pavilion.
Yeah.
You just may not have the pavilion.
Yeah.
It may be the sun on your face. Or you could, find one of those $80 pop-up tents that people can stand under.
Canopy. Like, make your own pavilion.
There's a way that you can do that. If you're dead set on going to a park for a gathering on the Shabbat, there's a ton of ways to do it without spending money and causing other people to work for you.
Yeah.
So just takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of attentiveness in the brain. Oh, we're actually caught up. All right, so AJ, then what are you saying? It says, I'm not saying the Sabbath is abolished, just not mandated like for the Jewish community.
But if it's not mandated, then it is abolished, my friend. Like if it's not an expectation, then it's obsolete. It's archaic. It's you can do it. You don't have to do it. It's not a sin to break it. So that's where our struggle is with Orthodox folk, is that, that is abolishing the Sabbath.
Respectfully, AJ, bro, the very fact that you're referring to Christianity in comparison to quote unquote pre-rabbinic Judaism is contradictory to the actual claim, because what you just described is rabbinic Judaism. The fact that you're making a distinction between Jews and Christians and which one observes which instructions is rabbinic Judaism.
Yeah.
That's their mindset. That's not the apostles and Christ mindset. That's not the law of God mindset from the prophets, where they had one law for the stranger or the foreigner. There is no Jew or Greek in Christ. It's one law for everyone who comes into faith under Christ, which is the law of God. So, and it's not the law from the bishops and the councils.
Yeah. Lovingly, the Catholics and the Orthodox are just Pharisees 2.0. Like they have fallen into the same trap that the Pharisees fell into, where the word is not enough. We need men to interpret it for us. We need men to build on it and give us more fences around it. We need men to tell the lay people how to keep it. And then when it gets it goes in a different direction with Orthodoxy and Catholicism, because those were Gentiles coming into the faith who were raised with Greek and Roman religions and mindsets. So they brought those, they were wearing those glasses on, and those, they were filtering the scriptures that they had access to through those lenses when they came into the faith. So they started changing things in a different, the Pharisees were changing things too, just in a different way to try and keep themselves from being too paganized, but they eventually ended up becoming paganized anyways. But Catholicism and Orthodoxy fell into that same trap where the clear words of scripture aren't enough. We've got all these philosophical presuppositions we're going to bring into this and say, well, it can't mean what it says because of this philosophical presupposition. We say God cannot do this, God cannot be that. Therefore, these clearly written words don't really mean what they say. So, lovingly, I'm speaking as someone who I've got a level of respect for Orthodoxy and Catholicism that a lot of people in the Torah crowd really despise and hate and think I'm wrong for. I don't necessarily have
not enough respect to join, but
but I don't have a beef with our history. I look at Catholics and Orthodox same way I look at Jews and the patriarchs of scripture, that these are my forefathers in the faith. These are people in the faith who came before me, and I may disagree with them on some things, but I don't look at them as not in the family of God. I appreciate the early Christians for compiling the New Testament and for keeping it safe while copies of it were being burned and people were being persecuted for having it. So I am speaking as someone who acknowledges,
but that doesn't give them the right to change commandments.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I acknowledge the history happened. I understand their bad logic that they use to get to their conclusions. I'm not mad at them for it. But also I can't agree with them just because they're older than me and they've been doing it longer than me. They've been doing it wrong longer than me. So that's my issue. I like I said, I've got some very friendly orthos on my page who have tried to evangelize to me. And I always come back with, look, I respect you guys. I respect your faith. I don't think you're apostates. I don't think you're lawless people following an anti-Messiah like a lot of Torah people do. But I can't get on board with someone changing something so clear as the Sabbath. I mean, we could get into all the other things that were changed, but just on a foundational level, fourth commandment out of the 10 that people acknowledge, I can't get on board with any church that's saying that God sent Jesus to do away with the expectation of us keeping it. And I think nowadays I've seen narratives change from Catholicism and Orthodoxy, actually, where they're trying to be more friendly to this idea of, well, it's okay if a Christian wants to keep the Sabbath and the feast. They can do those things. They're not out of the faith if they do those things. They're just not required for salvation. Yes, I have had Catholics and Orthodox tell me these things.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I'm just saying they're in a new anomaly compared to the church fathers.
That's what I'm saying.
Who anathematized people that try to keep the Sabbath and the commandments of God.
That's what I'm saying.
Replaced that behavior with the sacraments.
Yes.
So there's a very big issue historically here that needs to be addressed. It's the elephant. It's the ortho elephant in the room that nobody seems to want to bring up, because they keep going, well, how dare you question us? I'm not going to answer your questions because who gave you the Bible? You're like, bro, just chill on that. Look, if there was only one Quran left in the world and I put out the fire that was destroying the library that housed the Quran, that would not give me the permission then to change the instructions in the Quran and then say, well, because I saved the Bible, I saved the Quran for you. Now all Muslims must adhere to the redactions and editorial license I gave myself to change all the words in the Quran. Like, that is the most illogical, non sequitur logic I've ever heard in my life. But that is like the number one go-to argument for Orthodox. Yes. Because we were the custodians of Scripture, and you weren't even. Yeah. If you look at the history of the Armenians, the Ethiopians, like all the other Christians in the region, you weren't the only ones who kept the Bible all that time. There's different canons throughout different communities throughout history. So the point is, I don't allow them to. I don't give them the authority they gave themselves.
Right. And look, if we're going to follow the logic of whoever compiled your scriptures and kept them safe for you is the authority on how to interpret them, then we all should be following Judaism, because they compiled the Old Testament first. Christianity wouldn't have two-thirds of the Bible if it wasn't for Judaism. So that logic doesn't follow, because you guys you're not keeping the Sabbath like the Jews do.
Yeah. I don't want to get into a full-on
Yeah.
ortho debate
No,
here,
that's
though.
all right. We appreciate you being here in
We
our
got other
chat
questions to
and
get to.
being friendly and brotherly. We appreciate that. A lot of orthos come in here to really just
Act a fool.
anathematize
All right,
us.
next question. Deanna is asking about park rangers. So what about park rangers in a state park that's free to enter? Well, a ranger, this is going to be the same capacity as emergency services.
Mhm.
So like a, ambulance, EMS, a police officer. The general concept of them being a protector that's hired for a people or a region is that they could be saving a life. And so this, even in ancient Judaism, this fell into the regards of if it's okay to save a life on the Sabbath. And so this is a concept of just like Christ talking about, it's okay to get your donkey that fell in the well out on the Sabbath. You're saving a life, even whether it's mankind or an animal. And park rangers are responsible for both. So I think that falls into that category. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's like having emergency responders, police and
Yeah.
ambulances on call for you at any time of the week. You might need to call on them on Sabbath,
Yeah.
but you didn't pay to enter the park, so that's really the big thing. If there's an emergency that you need, which you're not even gonna, it's most likely not gonna be a park ranger. If you know anything about the parks, I mean, one park ranger covers like such a mass amount. It's gonna be some sort of police that come to you probably.
Yeah.
But
David is asking about, based on the answers given to the questions on YouTube, would you support staying in a hotel, reserve paid for prior, and check out after Sabbath? I think we did. You may have asked this
yeah,
as we were already answering it, but because essentially what you're doing is you're traveling away from your home. And we do not live in ancient Israel where people were expected to host strangers
yeah,
in their home.
yeah, that's not our culture.
Yeah. So without that ability, and this is something that it is a life and death situation for many people to be left to exposure overnight. So therefore you need shelter. And this is one of the situations that would fall into, preserving a life on the Sabbath. And so, yes, people are paying ahead of time for their hotels because they're traveling more than 7 days.
The goal Sean and I have is eventually to have an RV that we can travel in so that we can just, stop and boondock somewhere and not even pay for an RV spot, and we'll have everything we need. So that would be the goal. But in the meantime, we believe that there's definitely grace and provision for that.
All right. Kelly's asking, what exactly are we remembering on the Feast Trumpets? The Feast of Trumpets, it's not talked about as specifically a remembrance.
Yeah. That's to me, our understanding is that's a feast of anticipation.
Yeah.
We're anticipating when the trumpets are going to blow when Yeshua returns and the kingdom comes.
Yeah.
Is that it? We're at the end?
Yeah, we're at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, Tiago, we've actually talked about this in the past about some people that are like a part of emergency services or just any service that you might be helping somebody on the Sabbath. If you decide to do it on that day, don't charge them for it. You know what I'm saying? If you genuinely have to go help to protect somebody, again, trying to get the government to abide by this and say, oh, can you take me off the schedule for all Saturdays as an EMS worker, but I just leave me on call in case of emergency. That's what we've suggested, knowing that it's very difficult, but at least you're trying. At least you're trying. And again, pray. Just continue to pray that God will put you in a position so you can observe the Sabbath. And that's what happened to me for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
2 years. I was praying, God, I want to observe your Sabbath. Help me get in a position to do that. I work at a job where all my income is made. It was in sales. All my income was made on the weekends. Help me get to a place. So he helped me get a new job, different job. So, I mean, if everyone just chilled on the Sabbath, there wouldn't be any emergency services needed.
Right. Ideally.
If people stopped doing drugs on Friday night.
If only it was that simple.
If it only was that simple. Okay.
All right.
What do you think, sweetie?
I think 2.5 hours is enough.
Yeah. Appreciate everybody for being here. We're probably going to wrap it up. Check out the fundraiser below, helping out a woman in need with 3 children, or two already born, 1 on the way. Trying to go to a place of safety from an abusive husband. So please, if it's on your heart to donate and give, that's an awesome opportunity down below in the video description.
By the way, I wanted to say something. Last week when we brought up this fundraiser, there was someone in the chat that was starting to make assumptions about her and ask, oh, did she really act like she was one way and then she's another way, blah, blah, blah. I would like to state for the record, I don't know this gal personally in real life, but I do know her through our friendship on Facebook of many years. And I just want to say, I personally believe that she is an absolute gem. And I am very sad and angry that this has happened because she is kind of recoiling now from men in relationships in fear, which I've been there in my life and I completely understand. And I feel very sad because she would make a wonderful wife, and she did make a wonderful wife. And she is the proverbs that talk about finding a virtuous woman is as rare as finding gems and rubies. It's a very wonderful, rare thing to find a truly virtuous woman. I want to state for the record, anyone who knows her probably is going to agree with me that this is the type of woman that every man who says they want a godly, submissive, beautiful, kind and loving wife, she is the epitome of those things. So I wanted to state for the record that anyone out there who may be having those kinds of thoughts and questions, just to answer those specific questions, no, she didn't act one way and really was another. That's actually how it went with her husband. Her husband acted one way and he actually is another way. So
yeah, and sadly, without going into the details publicly, if this were ancient Israel, the husband would be killed by the elders.
Yeah. So for the record, no, this is not a situation. That's why Sean and I are supporting and trying to get help. So I would like you to all pray for her and pray for him. He really needs repentance and change, but definitely pray for her because would make a wonderful wife. Any man would be lucky to have her, would be blessed to have her. So
I'd love to see a full turnaround for this guy.
Yes, I would love to see that.
Full sobriety, full turnaround in all regards, and for him to be a good father to these children.
Yeah. But if not, pray for her for this fear that she's now living in. Pray against that for her because she deserves to have a good, godly, gentle, kind husband who treats her like the woman that she is. And so let's pray against that fear for her because that could really stop her from either a real reconciliation with a repentant husband or finding, a good, godly man that's meant for her in the future. So just lift her up, you guys. Lift her up. She deserves it. So,
yeah.
Thank you guys. We love you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Be blessed.